Alright, so I finished another challenge run, and you know what that means. It's time for another tier list. Hashtag not a tier list. This hashtag not a tier list is me not tiering the partners in Paper Mario 64 in terms of how well they perform in a zero growths or zero experience level 1 run. So for a level 1 run, you are stuck at level 1. You can use these super blocks to power up your partners, which is super helpful, but with only 5 FP, it limits a lot of their functionality and makes the ones who are better get even better. And the ones who are worse tend to suffer more from that. So, you know, it's unfortunate, but that's just how it goes. Let's speed through this. Start out, Goombario. Oh, and I will clarify, I am taking availability into account. It's a little bit weird whether you should or shouldn't, but I think you do take availability into account in an instance like this. So I am taking availability into account, which is going to affect a couple of the partners' rankings. So Goombario has basically perfect availability. He shows up in the prologue. You don't get him for the first Junior Troopa fight, which is unlosable, and you don't get him for the tutorial fights with various Goombas and Spiked Goombas, where you have Goompa instead of Goombario. But as soon as you leave Goomba Village, so as soon as you're like done with what is functionally a tutorial of like, here's flying enemies, here's spiked enemies, here's regular enemies, here's how combat works, without even having action commands, right? You get Goombario. His head bonk, without upgrades, he just has head bonk and tattle. Tattle is not very good in this game. It's fine in a casual context, but it doesn't do anything for you once you know enemy HP or if you're willing to look them up. And attack and defense. Other than like, there's a lot of cute flavor. It's not as cute as, I think TTYD has better flavor, Goombaria, but, or Goombella, rather. Goombaria is Goombario's sister. So many Goombas, so many Gooms. But yeah. I think Goombario is, so the availability alone gives him a push over the other, would-be B-tier partners. The B-tier is gonna be crowded. Availability gives him a push alone because he's the only one you have for prologue, and he's around for the rest of the game as well. I do think that, as well, against enemies with 0 defense, he is the best single target damage dealer for free, which not costing FP is a big deal in zero growths or in level 1 because you only have 5 FP. So if you're able to deal a significant amount of damage without spending FP, that's valuable because you want to spend FP on big attacks, usually power bounces or quake hammers if you're going for AoE. Mario wants to spend the FP. You would rather have your partners do things without spending FP. And Goombario can deal 4 damage once powered up, once he gets a super block. You probably aren't using him once he's Ultra, but then he can deal 6. His head bonk is Mario's jump, and giving him power blocks gives him new pairs of boots, basically, is the best way to think about that. He gets access to charge and multi-bonk, but I never think those are especially worthwhile, because you can't use power rush on him the same way that you could with Mario's power bounce, so multi-bonk isn't very useful, and charge is kind of just like, when you think about it, you're spending 1 FP to basically take a turn off and then take that turn next turn. Because if you're charging, you gain extra attack, but you could have just attacked instead and dealt the damage without dealing FP. The only time it's useful is against enemies with defense, and Goombario shouldn't be the partner you're using against enemies with defense. But in chapters 1 and 2, I think he's the best single target damager. Then Bo shows up and he just no longer, best single target damager with no FP cost. But then Bo shows up and he's just no longer needed. She takes over that niche and also has other good things about her. But with the availability alone and being the best single target for chapters 1 and 2, I think he belongs in B tier and probably the very top of it in zero growths. Or level, I'm gonna keep calling it zero growths by accident, but I'm talking about the level 1 run. Next is Cooper. Cooper's AoE. Cooper is your early game AoE. It sucks that he can't hit airborne enemies. It sucks that he can't hit airborne enemies, but he's AoE that you can, so he's early game AoE, obviously. Power Shell is very nice for like dealing a bunch of damage to people. If you give him the Super Block like I did, Super Block, Power Shell plus a Quake Hammer is enough to kill the Stone Chomp boss fights, right? Which is really nice. It's helpful against the mummy pokies. Like, this is all Chapter 2 stuff. I don't think he's too great Chapter 1. He is capable of exploding bombs without, like, taking damage, which is a nice niche, I guess. And if you use Power Shell, he can explode them all without taking damage. Like, if they're already lit, obviously. He just lights them if they're not lit. But I think that's, like, very niche. Like, just use a Fire Flower. Or just, like, accept that the partner is going to take damage, because usually it's going to end the battle anyway, and partners taking damage just stuns them. The AoE is really nice, though. I think that the fact there's 2 Super Blocks before fighting Stone Chomps is really nice, because it means you can give one to him and one to Goombario and not feel bad about it. Oh, there's 3, actually. If you go back to Mount Rugged, you can get one for Parakarry as well. And then just, like, everyone gets to eat except for Bombette. I think he's ultimately worse than Goombario in the early game, but there's actual reasons to bring him out in the late game, because he is the only, or I think he's the only one able to do AoE damage without an FP Plus badge, which is like pretty huge, because you usually want FP Plus badge is all of your BP, because you only have 3 BP. So being able to do AoE damage and still have other badges for Mario, whether it's like Double Dip or Power Bounce or Power Rush or Mega Rush, is pretty nice. Very nice. I think actually, so that utility alone, the fact that there's sometimes reasons you'll pull him out in the late game, like I had him out in Chapter 7 and not just in the fights where he's forced. I think that AoE damage, I mean, I brought him out in Chapter 6 to deal with the moles. I think that AoE is really nice. Sushi is better at AoE, but also it costs 6 FP, so you need to have FP Plus on. I think he's, in just this context, I think he's better than Goombario. I think if it weren't level 1 run, we might have to debate like where they go in here. They're not tiers apart, but he has that late game utility that Goombario just doesn't. Because Goombario's only good if enemies don't have defense, and if enemies don't have defense, you just use bow. Oh, Bombette. I'm really sorry, Bombette, but like I have to rate you poorly. I don't actually think she's the worst partner. I don't think she's the worst partner in vanilla or in level 1 runs, though. I think it's very easy to shit on her, especially in the context of level 1. Like, she's not getting any super blocks. She is... So, the partners in Paper Mario are basically just a method for converting FP into damage, and Bombette has the worst conversion rate. She has Body Slam, she has Bomb. There is the utility of getting First Strike Bomb, which doesn't cost you FP, which is really nice, and you can use Bomb in level 0. You can't use Super Bomb or Mega Bomb, which are like the AoE versions of bombs. I don't think you want to in vanilla, and the fact that you can't in a level 1 run without equipping an FP Plus badge is like just awful for her. I think, however, she has Chapter 1 utility, specifically. I guess Chapter 2 if you're fighting the Clefts, but you should probably avoid the Clefts, just because, like, fighting Clefts is really fucking annoying. But having her ability to deal a lot of damage to high defense enemies is nice. Her ability to, like, she's good against Trojan Bowser. She can theoretically knock down the Koopa stack, but you'd rather do that, like, just do that with a hammer and then have Koops hit everyone, or Cooper hit everyone. I'm gonna put her in C tier. Controversial. For anyone who cares about Paper Mario rankings, controversial. But I do think in the context of level 1, she gets a little bit better. And I think there's a reason to argue... So she gets better in the early game. But I also think there's potentially a reason to argue that she's here in vanilla as well. But that's a conversation for another time. Parakarry? Parakarry really suffers from the fact that it's a level 1 run. Because Parakarry's big strength is... Shell Shot is a very high damage attack, and you can only use it once in a level 1 run. I believe it's 4 FP. Let me go ahead and check that. I didn't check that. But I believe it is 4 FP. Regardless, it is enough of an FP cost that you're not doing it more than once in a battle. It is incredibly strong. Like, it's strong single target damage. But I think Goombario has him beat in that because it doesn't cost FP. And, like, not costing FP when you only have 5 FP to work with is super huge. In a vanilla run, obviously, Parakarry is better at dealing, Parakarry's better at dealing damage. So it's 3 FP, which means that you can't both Power Bounce and Shell Shot without using an FP recovering move. And I think that's enough. Because Power Bounce is 3. And Power Bounce is like your bread and butter. Is he worse than Bombette? When do you ever use him? Like, against enemies with defense in Chapter 4? Before you have Watt? But, like, are there any fights you care about? I don't think you use him against Tut and Koopa, because Goombario's better, because he doesn't have defense. And, like, Parakarry, I guess, could hit the Chomp, but Quake Hammer's right there. Bombette might be better against the Chomp. Well, no, because the FP cost is still pretty excessive. I think they're both... I think I'm putting Parakarry lower purely on the basis of availability. I don't think you ever want to use either of them in combat. But I think that if you're using one... using Bombette in Chapter 1 is more justifiable than using Parakarry in Chapter 2. God, that... I'm gonna be controversial in the Paper Mario community. Putting Bombette higher than Parakarry. Like, I guess... What, Airlift? Do you ever use Airlift? I don't think so. Yeah, I think this is how you want it. Bo easy S tier. Bo is the best partner in the game, both in vanilla and in level 1. It is impossible to overstate just how good Out of Sight is. For 2 FP, Mario becomes invincible for 1 turn and doesn't lose his next turn. Bo loses her next turn, so you cannot infinitely... Well, you couldn't anyway because of the FP cost, but you can't infinitely Out of Sight and use FP restoring items, right? Like, Bo has to take a turn off after she Out of Sights. Mario does not. And that's, like, really huge. Because, like, the way that it was put in the game, it was clearly intended that you use Out of Sight against the charge attacks. There's a couple of bosses and enemies who have charge attacks. A lot of them are in Chapter 3. The Heart is in Chapter 3. The Mega Goombas and Mega Cliffs are in Chapter 3. And that's, like, to show off the intended usage of Bo. It's like, oh, this enemy just charged themselves. They boost their attack by, like, 6 points. You use Out of Sight, their attack misses. But because Mario gets a free turn, it functionally becomes like, do you want to pay 2 FP to give Mario an extra turn? To make Bo's turn into Mario's turn. And oftentimes that's a cost you want to pay. Especially because Mario's the only one who can use items in this game. So, like, it basically allows Bo to pay 2 FP and use items, right? But it's not just that. Like, you can have Bo pay 2 FP and use Star Spirits. Have Bo use 2 FP and you get to do Power Jump plus a heal, right? An FP heal or whatever, right? The level 0 is obviously, you know, avoiding charge attacks, but, like, it's so much more than that. I mean, heck, you can Out of Sight in order to be able to, like, it's functionally a second Mario turn. And Mario's turns are far more impactful than anything the partners ever do. Because Mario can use Star Spirits, Mario can use items, and Mario can use the various badge attacks, especially Power Bounce. Bo can do anything that Mario can do. And then in addition to that, her, like, 0 FP move, the Slap, is, I think at its cap, it's 6 damage against 0 defense enemies. It's 0 damage against anyone who has a point of defense. But you don't use her against, or you don't attack with her against people with points of defense. But even when she can't deal damage, she can just spend 2 FP and allow Mario to deal the damage, right? So many encounters, I got into a loop of this enemy will deal 5 damage to me, right? There's a lot of enemies in the mid-game, a lot of bosses in the mid-game who deal 5 damage. So you go into a loop of get Mario into danger with Power Rush. Or you can get Mario into peril with Power. But like if they're dealing heck, even more than 5 damage, you can do it with Power Rush. But if they're doing 5 damage, you can do it with Peril, with Mega Rush. But either way, what you do is Mario power bounces, that's 3 FP. Bo uses Out of Sight, that's 2 FP. That uses all 5 of your FP. The enemy attacks, deals no damage to you because you're out of sighted. Mario gets a free turn, use Refresh. Your FP is all restored, and you get plus 5 HP. If the enemy is dealing like 6 or 7 damage to you, they can gradually wear you down, but they're going to be continuously keeping you in the danger zone. If you've got Power Rush on, then you deal significantly more damage with Power Bounce. If they're dealing exactly 5 damage to you and you can do a Mega Rush, or 6 damage and you know how to guard it, right? Then you do Mega Rush and maintain Peril until you run out of Star Energy or FP. Like, you can also do it with Honey Mushrooms, right? But I like Refresh because then you can use your items for something else. And you just constantly loop it and deal so much damage with powered up Power Bounces. And it's just incredible. It's just incredible. It's not even the only application for Out of Sight, right? Like you want to use 2 items, but you don't have double dip. You want to use 4 items by double dipping. Like there's just so much that she enables. Out of Sight only being 2 FP is incredible. Like it is the best return for your FP investment. It's an extra turn for Mario. Watt is right up there in S tier with her. Watt is only there for the day-to-day attack, piercing defense, but it's 5 damage piercing defense. Super, super good on Bowser, on the Crystal King. I mean, Watt makes the general guy free. Watt means that all I had to do is I bought a stone cap. I bought like 3 stone caps. Once you get through general guy's soldiers, Watt solos general guy. Because General Guy's only attacks are the bomb, which hits Mario, but if you use a Stone Cat, 0 damage. And the electric attack, which hits both Mario and the partner, but Watt is immune to electric damage. And I think that's, like, intentional, because that's the only electric attack that hits partners that I'm aware of in the game. Bowser has 2 points of defense, Crystal King has 2 points of defense, Junior Troopa has 1 point of defense in all of the fights that actually matter, right? So Watt is incredibly good for the bosses that Bo can't deal damage to with the day-to-day. You can also paralyze bosses. I did that a couple of times in the run. I'm not super good at mashing, so I don't think it's like reliable and worth doing. You could theoretically also supercharge Mario's attack power, but again, I don't think it's super worth doing. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, easy S tier. I think Bo is definitively the best partner in the game and the best partner in Zero Growths, just because of how powerful Out of Sight is and how her day-to-day is still... Like, it's not just Out of Sight, her day-to-day is amazing. Watt is up here because her day-to-day is probably the best... But day-to-day, I mean the free attack, right? Something that doesn't cost any FP. Probably the best of the free FPs. Like, it's 1 less damage than Bo's, but it pierces defense, so against an enemy with any amount of defense, it's more. Against an enemy with any amount of defense, it's the highest attack, right? And then none of her FP moves matter, but that just means you spend your FP on Mario, or you don't spend any at all, because 5 FP is so little that, like, I don't know, it's not necessarily a downside to not have the FP moves matter. You upgrade her because you want to upgrade the Electro Dash. Sushi. I am not a Sushi believer, necessarily, but I also think that Sushi gets a lot worse in level 1 run. I think that in vanilla, Sushi belongs here, because Tidal Wave is, while expensive, the best AoE damage if you are able to get the command down properly. I think that on average, you usually get like 6 to 8 if you're good at it. If you cycle mash, which is like an advanced technique that like fucking speedrunners and Mario challenge run, Paper Mario specific challenge runners, like people who devote tons of time to this game can do, then you can pretty reliably get 12. The game crashes at 14, so you can't get more than that. But she is, like, Tidal Wave is incredibly powerful. The problem is it costs 6 FP, which means in order to use it in a level 1 run, you need to wear FP plus, and it's like, you can only use it once before healing. I think that's real fucking bad. I think that might even push her down below Cooper and Goombario, not because you should ever have... Well, you might want to have Cooper out instead of her, because I think Cooper in a level 1 run is actually better at AoE than her, assuming there's no aerial enemies. Because she can hit aerial enemies. Tidal Wave can hit aerial enemies, Cooper cannot. Fire Shell's going to deal 6 damage AoE, and you don't have to wear an FP plus in order to use it. It has the same downside if you need to heal your FP before using it again, but almost every relevant FP attack has that downside. With Sushi, you need to wear FP plus, which means Mario doesn't get any other badges, because that's 3 BP. That means no Mega Rush, no Power Bounce, no Quake Hammer. Like, I don't think that's very good. And outside of Tidal Wave, Sushi doesn't really have a claim to fame. Like, Water Block to boost your defense, I don't like that. It's, like, fine, but I don't think it's especially worth it. Squirt, like, you can do Squirt or Tidal Wave on Lava Piranha, but, like, the Snowman doll is sold on Yoshi's Island. So Lava Piranha is basically free anyway. Like, I prefer to use Double Dip, and you can't use Double Dip, you can't use Double Dip if you're using Sushi for Tidal Wave. I don't ever see it. Am I putting the 3rd best partner in the game in D tier? I think I might be. Like, I do not think she belongs here in vanilla. I think that she is in the top 3. I think she belongs in A tier. I think that there's people who say she's as good as Watt and Sushi, or as good in Watt and Bow. I don't think that's the case. I think it's a very definitive top, middle, bottom. Everyone else is just about the same as each other. I think that taking into account the fact that you need to wear FP plus, because I did that for her for the Monty Mole fight, right? Because Starstorm plus Fire Shell wasn't enough to kill them. The 4 Monty Mole fight, right? And I don't think that was worth it. I don't think that was what I wanted to do. I think I should have just used Bow and gone Starstorm, Out of Sight, Starstorm. Like, I think that's a better... It's only 2 FP. And Mario can wear other badges at that time. I don't think Sushi justifies ever getting brought out in a level 1 run. Because using her for the things she has over other partners requires you to fuck your badge economy. And I do not think Tidal Wave is worth... I don't think Tidal Wave is worth FP plus and only being able to use it once in between FP healing. Because only Mario can heal FP, so it costs Mario's turn. If you want to use Tidal Wave an additional time, it costs Mario's turn. Because he's either using a honey item, or he's using Refresh. I don't think that's worth it. Lackluster is in a similar situation to Sushi. I think that he is generally better than the people in C tier, and probably better than Goombario. But taking availability into account, I don't see any reason why I would use Lackluster instead of Bow or Watt. And even Cooper. Like, Cooper, again, Cooper might be talking his way up into A tier. No, I don't think he's A tier. No, I don't think so. He's the best AoE in a level 1 setting. God, this tier list, snapshotted out of context, is gonna look so fucking weird. But I think Cooper goes up. Oh, that sucks. Oh, that sucks. This is so bad. Like, if you... This is for a level 1 run. Now you can't fucking take a screenshot out of context. This is for a level 1 run specifically, where you only have 5 FP, so suddenly Cooper is Sushi, but you can wear badges. Cooper is Sushi, but you can wear badges. Actually, how much does Spiny Surge cost? Oh, is Lackluster gonna go above Sushi because there's a reason to use him? I did not even, like, think to look at Lackluster's, like, abilities and shit, right? Just because I was like, there's the availability, there's no reason to ever use him. How much does Spiny Surge cost, though? Spiny Surge is 4. Spiny Surge is 4 FP. Oh, no. Oh, no. Does Lackluster go up to C tier? Is Sushi gonna be in fucking D tier despite being the 3rd best partner in the game in vanilla? And is she gonna be alone down there? Oh, no. I can't put Lackluster any higher than C tier because availability makes it so that, like, you'd never... Cooper's availability and the fact that you would whip him out for AoE, and he deals more damage at Ultra rank than Spiny Surge would. So if it's all grounded enemies, which a lot of layouts are all grounded enemies, I think Cooper's better. But like Lackluster, there's an argument, I didn't use him for this, but there's an argument for Lackluster against the Crystal King to shatter illusions. I think they might be like fixed, like what's the illusion or whatnot, but I don't know what is the illusion or whatnot, so like you could use Lackluster to do that. Like I'd rather Starstorm, right? God, this feels so bad, but I can't justify ever using Sushi. And I can see a world in which Lackluster has utility. And, like, the availability difference is not that much. Sushi has half of Chapter 5. Well, let's be fair. Sushi has all of Chapter 5. And half of Chapter 6 on Lackluster. So there is a pretty significant availability difference. But you're not using her until you get her to Tidal Wave anyway. So she really only has half of Chapter 5 because you want the Ultra Stone. Because, like, I don't see a use for Water Block. In general, like, boosting your defense is not as strong as you think it is. And you don't think it's that strong to begin with. This looks very wrong. This looks very wrong. I think it's how I feel about the partners in a level 1 run. This looks so fucking bad. Go ahead and cancel me, please. Leave a comment about how I have the most fucking empty head takes about Paper Mario. At least I have Bo and Watt where they belong. At least I have them where they belong. Fucking level 1 is so weird.